Long. How you doing?
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome, all our fantastic listeners and viewers everywhere, wherever in the world you are. It's Thursday. It's 8 o'clock. It's time for the happiest place on radio. It's the place where we can laugh and knock back a few and pretend as if not pretend, and just look as if everything is okay while we discuss some very, very serious issues and how they impact on our region. And most important, we try to put forward some solutions for how some of these issues can be dealt with, and what we can't do ourselves, we hope that those who can do will take seriously and will do, because none of us are going to be here forever, and we would like to leave a better place than we saw when we arrived. Right, Allan?
I don't know why you decided to ask me a question, because I have a question for you. When you say knock back a few, what you talking about?
Coffee, tea, water, wine, juice, my very favorite carrot juice, anything that we choose to knock back on.
Well, having been accustomed to George's entertainment and hospitality, I am a little concerned as to what it is that is available, because I ain't seen nothing.
Oh, George.
Oh, George. Slacking?
Guys, we're only 2 minutes into the program. Please, get off my back. Don't get started so early, please.
That's all right, Allan. You know, usually what happens in the middle of the show, our suspect in charge will get up, abandon us, and then he'll come back with a big cup of money.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So when he goes to get his money cup, I'm sure he'll bring you back something.
Well, I look forward to it. Thank you. This is the first time that you have invited me to be on this particular program. So it's a special occasion for me.
I am so very happy that you are here. You know, you are one of the persons.
Okay. Flattery will get you nowhere. I hear already.
All right. Good.
As they say, moving right along.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Moving right along.
Yes, let us move right along. I am doing the welcome this evening because our suspect in chief, as usual, Margaret, is fleet-footed all over the place. When he should be on duty, he is somewhere else.
Did he go with
LIAT? It really doesn't matter how much you dock the pay. You dock it this month, next month he get up and he gone again.
And he has no shame. He boasts about it too. He boasts about it in public.
So you know what happened? Since he doesn't seem to need his salary, we're just gonna stop paying him altogether. No more funds.
Quite agree.
Right. We have more important things to do with those funds, right, George?
Yes, ma'am.
But we welcome Athy. Athy is in Dominica. We welcome Margaret. Margaret is from our Caribbean friends in the diaspora. You know, she abandoned us in the Caribbean and set up shop.
Never.
Shop in Trumpland, as we call it these days. And we have George at the control in Grenada. And we absolutely cannot ever thank George enough for keeping this program going. And we have a guest suspect this evening, Mr. Allan Bierzynski, the man with the quirkiest sense of humor, I call it. Do you know that fella, Allan Bierzynski?
You mean I have to live up to that?
Of course.
It's just you, so you don't have a thing to live up to. It's just you. I think you're gonna like him. Yes, the two of you will get along great. But Afi, I need you to tilt your camera down a little bit so we see less of your wonderful ceiling and more of you.
Right. There you go.
That's it. That's it.
You
Good.
you don't like my roof?
We'd rather see you.
Ceiling?
We like to know you still have a roof
Over your head. No, that's a good thing. In Dominica, it's particularly important to have a stable roof over your head.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Survive Maria.
Very good.
That's its legacy.
And any roof that survived Maria should be replicated all across the Caribbean.
My own survive, Ivan.
Mine didn't.
Mine did. Mine did.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this evening, we have a long menu this evening, you know. And you know what happens? We never usually like to just hand out the menu and tell everyone what's on it, because everyone wants to order everything on the menu, and the chefs in the kitchen, they tend to be slow at times. They can't cook fast enough. So we run out of time, we can't serve some people, so we take the menu bit by bit and we give it to you in pieces. You usually enjoy everything which is served, so we don't worry about that.
Okay, so run with the appetizer.
Tonight, look, we don't have no appetizer here. Everything is main course. And every now and then, if the suspects behave themselves, we throw in a little dessert.
My favorite part of the meal, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Yeah, so tonight we are going to start out with LIAT singing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, coming for to carry me home. We're going to look at CBI and diplomatic passports, and we are going to look at Dominica, facilitating movement of Haitians to the other islands, especially to the French islands. And depending on how fast we cook and serve and eat, we will look at Venezuela's further descent into chaos. But it has been interesting times for LIAT, for those who travel around the Eastern Caribbean especially. LIAT is the primary means of travel. It's not the only means of travel, but it has become the primary means of travel because we have some prime ministers in the region who do not want any competition for LIAT, and they do everything to keep other airlines away, to keep the ferries away, to keep anything that seems to be an option to LIAT out of the framework. So LIAT, by default, has become the primary means of travel. But the controversy with this is that although LIAT has most of the travel business in the region, LIAT has been unable to sustain itself. It's become like a government department. You know, it's in the budget every year. You give it an allowance, it spends that allowance, and next year it comes back for another allowance, and you don't have to give account of what you do with the money, you just pump for some more. And the taxpayers keep paying and paying and paying, and nobody knows what LIAT does with the money. In the last few months, of course, we heard the call that LIAT had only 3 weeks to live if it didn't get 5.4 million United States dollars pumped into it immediately. Well, the island of Grenada, which is one of the islands which LIAT serves, decided that it's going to give Grenada 1 million EC dollars. And I am still calling on Dr. Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada and Minister of Finance, to get back the people money. Last year, in the last big rally before the general election, he asked the people, who do you trust to take care of your money? The The people voted overwhelmingly that they trust him to take care of the money. And what did he do? He threw $1 million in a black hole during the same period when you have a school that had to close because the infrastructure collapsed. You have teachers whose salary was docked and he refused to give back the people their money. All kind of things happening locally. And he decided to give LIAT $1 million. We want it back. As a tax-paying member of the society, I want back the money. No other government has come forward to give LIAT any money. But in the last few days, that we know of, that has publicly announced it like Grenada has done. But over the last week, Antigua and Barbuda, which is the island that holds on to LIAT the tightest, because Antigua has over 700 employees with LIAT. What they're doing there, we would like to know. Because according to the CDB report, most of the LIAT workers do not do anything. The CDB report done on LIAT about 4 years ago documented that about 30% of the staff does all the work and nobody really knows what the other 70% does. And Antigua has 700. So out of that 700, I don't know how many fall in the 30%. But of course, the Prime Minister is anxious to keep LIAT because that would be a political crisis if he has to find solace for 700 people who will lose their jobs. So over the last few weeks, he has declared that Antigua and Barbuda will not let LIAT go under. He has not declared how he will keep it flying, but he has declared that it will not go under. And right behind that, he has attacked St. Lucia because Prime Minister Chastanet has made it absolutely clear, I like him, I think I want to move to St. Lucia. He has declared that he is not taking his taxpayers' money and give it to LIAT in its present construct. And that is something I fully support. So the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda has taken on the Prime Minister of St. Lucia to lay a claim of how not ununited, disunited we are in the region. We don't sympathize and empathize with each other and all the rest of it. And then he drew a comparison. What if the OECS should collapse? You know, if people should fail to support the organization. And I'm like, how does he make that comparison? You know, how do you compare the OECS with LIAT? So I am asking the question if he's threatening to pull Antigua and Barbuda out of the Union. Britain has been trying to leave the EU for 3 years now and they can't leave. So I'm wondering if he intends to activate exit OECS for Antigua and Barbuda. We wait to see what comes. This is the one time when PM Gaston Brown talked, and I think he stopped talk a little bit too quick. He should have continued, build upon what he was saying. So that is where it is. But the pilots have signaled that it's just a matter of time. Even though the CEO continues to say, although it is difficult, LIAT is going to continue flying. They have issues with aircraft. Barbados, which is a major shareholder, tell them, look, you have 3 aircraft that you need to sell. You need to pay down the CDB loan because CDB has some money for me that I need.
Okay.
And if you don't pay them, Gaston is saying Antigua go buy the plane. I don't know where they're getting the money from. They probably have some CBI money up there.
He probably does.
They possibly do have some CBI money up here to buy the plane. But that is what has been happening with LIAT. When taxes on a ticket still add up to more than 50% of the cost of the ticket. Yeah. A ticket price will be $70 and the taxes will be over $100. Not one single one of these prime ministers in none of the countries that LIAT services will say, okay, reduce the taxes. St. Vincent and the Grenadines with its brand new airport. Its airport tax on a ticket is $80.
Each way.
80, every time you buy a ticket that touches St. Vincent, you're paying $80 for taxes. For
Right,
airport.
and
That's only one.
Yeah, but I mean, is that for the total trip or is it each way?
On the ticket.
Is it for the wrong trip or is it?
That would be for the round trip.
Okay.
So if you buy a ticket, if you buy a round trip ticket, the airport tax is $80. You know? So we build all these fancy airports because it's just a competition among the prime ministers to have international airports. Build all these international airports and then have to tax people to maintain them. But when you put the taxes on people, they stop traveling. LIAT's passenger load has dropped from over 1 million to just over 700,000. So it's not a sustainable business, and that is where LIAT is at today. No wonder Dominica has its own airline bringing in Haitians. Right, Kathy?
No, but you know, this is quite a situation. Imagine for a moment that the prime ministers are little boys. Just imagine them 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and they're playing with their toys. But the toys don't belong to them, the toys belong to somebody else. Like in this case, LIAT is a toy, the OECS is a toy, and so on and so on and so on. And so I'm not at all surprised that instead of moving us closer to a solution, really the little boys with toys continue to play, and we continue to pay. The fundamental logic of transportation in an archipelago of islands, which is what we are, where you can stay in one island and see the next island, means that you have to find a way to make use of that free resource, that free highway, which requires no maintenance, no potholes to plug, which is the ocean. And so it really just, it baffles, you know, my logic at least, that we continue to explore the possibility of moving each other 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes at most between these islands using the most expensive means of transportation known to man. Absolutely. When in fact we have a highway, we didn't have to build it, we don't have to maintain the surface. And in terms of moving goods and passengers, which is really what we should be about, because this is not about just transporting people. This is also about transporting cargo, I would imagine. And one question that has not been asked of LIAT, how much cargo do you move? How much trade do you facilitate between the islands, or between the island ring and other regions of the hemisphere, for example? And that would place an entirely different kind of, you know, focus on the analysis of whether or not we should be worrying about keeping LIAT or whether we should be running fast in the opposite direction. But when you add the little boy feature to that, you will understand that little boys will continue to play with toys until all the wheels on their little trucks and their little fire engines fall off, until the paint peels off, until the little headlamps fall off, until it becomes nothing. And then they go crying to mommy or to auntie or to dada, and they say they want another toy.
Of course.
We give them another toy, unfortunately. Every 5 years we give them more toys. Is really, I mean, I don't blame these boys. They're just kids. They're just little boys that we've put in positions to do things for which they have not had any preparation and they have no inclination. So I think it's really still just about time that people in the private sector, in the local transportation sector realize that we will go nowhere as a region. We will not even be able to see our folks next door It'll remain easier to go to New York than to go from here to Grenada. And so we've got to refocus the region on making the best use of an available resource, which is the oceans that surround our islands. If we can't do that, it'll get to the point where we'll not be able to come and see each other. We'll have to depend on Zoom or Skype or something.
No, we really know, Athi, we all know the problems with LIAT. The problems with LIAT are Prime Minister Gaston Brown, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. Those are the three problems with LIAT. If we get rid of those problems, we may have a chance of actually putting that airline on a business footing. In an interview which Dr. Gonsalves did about weeks ago, he totally rubbished the idea of privatizing LIAT. He said, no, although the CDB recommended it, that's not an option, And the only other option which he has, which has been the option every year for the past 10 years or more, is for governments to pay taxpayers' money and throw in this black hole.
Beverley?
But why do we have this aversion to traveling by sea? People get on a cruise line in London, in England, and travel across the Atlantic to come and cruise the Caribbean, and then they go back across the Atlantic. What's our problem as island people with the sea? Why are we afraid of accepting that we are islanders, and that means we're surrounded by water?
I think it may be one of speed. It takes longer to get there by boat as opposed to if you fly. And that may be one of the things. You live in an age where everybody wants to move and they want to move now. We want everything and we want it now. So that may very well be one of the reasons why, there isn't much sea travel anymore, because there used to be sea travel. Let's not forget that.
There are only a few things that Caribbean people seem to want now, and that's fit. And carnival and mass. Don't mess up their flight when they're going home for carnival. Don't mess it, but if it's work, if it's serious business, they don't care. They're often traveling on somebody else's dime, and so I don't buy that argument. I buy the argument that we, as part of our development discussion in the Caribbean of the last 50, 60 years, we have not. In fact, we have taken marine transportation out of the mix, and we have placed ourselves, at the mercy of a technology over which we have absolutely no control.
Artie, hang on a sec. Let me hear what Mr. Bierzynski. I know Mr. Bierzynski has been monitoring the situation with LIAT quite closely, and he's sitting here, I bet, just itching to get his 2 cents in. Allan?
I am old enough to remember when the Canadians provided the Federation with the palm and the maple, and they traveled from Port of Spain to Kingston, Jamaica. And that ceased sometime in the early 70s because, I suppose, of a lack of resources being made available by the governments. Because remember, the federal palm and the federal maple survived the demise of the Federation, but they couldn't survive independent territories because the money was not provided to keep these links going. I think we also need to understand that the idea of a national airline is something that politicians hold very dear to their agendas. So you had Air Jamaica, you had British West Indian Airways, which failed and is now Caribbean Airlines. There is just so much opportunity that presents itself for corruption in having national airlines. So I don't know that they're going to give it up. Now, I have had a love-hate relationship with LIAT all my life. Because of LIAT, I misspent much of my youth in Dominica, because getting into Melville Hall was a sort of hit or miss approach. Leaving Melville Hall in those days was a hit or miss approach. I have had to overnight in some interesting accommodation up in the north of Dominica. And when the privateer, Alan Stanford, came onto the scene and started Caribbean Star, consumers thought, oh, this is our salvation. Now LIAT is going to have to shape up or ship out. We all enjoyed the years when LIAT was the only means of moving from through the Windward and Leeward Islands. You remember the names we had? Leave Island anytime, lingers indefinitely at terminals, lost in between Antigua and Trinidad. It was great having LIAT as a punching bag. But then Caribbean Star came along and we saw the possibilities of competition, which was that they drove each other underground because they had the same type of aircraft landing within 10 minutes of each other, fighting for essentially the same set of passengers, because as Bev pointed out earlier, the ticket taxes have little relevance to the actual cost of transportation. The ticket taxes are there to go into the consolidated funds of the different jurisdictions. They're not going to give it up. So unless and until LIAT fails, stops flying, they're not going to address the situation. Now it's interesting for the people in the Leeward Islands and in actually the northern windwards, both Dominica and St. Lucia have opportunities because of their proximity to the French overseas departments. There is very effective ferry service, and they don't take long to run the 25 miles or whatever it is from Fort-de-France in Martinique to Castries in St. Lucia. Similarly, Dominica, Ati, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Dominica benefits very much from the sort of day trippers coming from Martinique or from Guadeloupe by ferry service. And so the possibilities for maritime transport have been clearly demonstrated if the policymakers were of a mind to learn the lessons. But perhaps they're not of that mind. And so unless there is a financial crisis and LIAT has to stop flying, maybe nothing will change. I don't see that there's any point in privatization, because if 40 or 50% of the ticket price goes in government taxes, no private operator is going to come into a business model where, let's say, 40 to 50% of your revenue is going straight to government. Doesn't make sense. And the other issue is that both Barbados and Antigua have managed to populate their respective hubs with so many employees. And as Bev says, a large percentage are probably not doing much. So you have the political patronage involved here. So I can't see anything changing until such time as the money actually runs out, which will be a disaster, to tell you the truth, but perhaps you need a disaster before something positive comes out.
And I believe like a phoenix, something wonderful will rise from the ashes.
Yeah, but you're
I
talking
couldn't
about
agree with that
down,
analysis more. As a matter of fact, to make it even more practical from a Dominican standpoint, as of this moment, we are the only island in the Eastern Caribbean without an international airport, meaning a jet airport. So we are the island who in fact, has the greatest imperative for coming up with some really novel solutions. And look at where we are located in the chain of islands. We are actually almost right in the center, equidistant from the islands north and the islands south. And as you mentioned earlier, we have seen and have the experience of the ferry service between Martinique, the Saints, Marie-Galante and Guadeloupe, and even Saint Lucia from time to time. And so we know that really what's needed. And this is where I think, unfortunately, our private sector people, are not stepping up to the crease. And is that there is an opening. People have shown that they are willing to take that 1 hour and 15-minute trip from Dominica to Fort-de-France or Dominica to Port-au-Prince. No problem.
I think hold on to that thought. We are going to take a break and we're going to come back because I have a view on that sea travel as well.
Okay. Are you equipped to take a closer look behind the numbers? The Caribbean Institute of Forensic Accounting can help you build your professional skills to audit and investigate fraud, waste, and abuse. Through the Forensic Certified Public Accountants FCPA program, you gain qualification to conduct forensic audits and investigations globally. Earn international recognition and designation as a Forensic Certified Public Accountant from the Forensic CPA Society of the USA. Certificate courses run May to November 2019 in Grenada at the Grenada National Stadium. To register, contact us at info@cefa-edu.com or 868-224-3478.
Boy, you gonna fly with kite now? The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, it can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADAB. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADAB, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Nice.
All right, guys, we're back. Oh, I see. We've now been rejoined by Catherine.
Hi.
Hi. Good to see you, Catherine. Take it away, Bev.
Yes, welcome back, everyone. For the first part of our program, we were looking at LIAT, and we just want to wrap up on LIAT. And then we're going to move into our next topic, which is CBI and diplomatic passports. But I was making a point on the sea travel before we went to break.
No, I made the point. I think we're ready for it. We're used to it. We've seen the value of it. What's missing is a champion or champions, to either from the private sector or a mixture of private and other sectors. But yeah, that's my point. It's an opportunity.
And I mentioned it in my opening remarks about LIAT, that the governments have done everything they can to keep competition out of the way of LIAT and keeping the ferries away. So I don't think that it's that people will not use the ferry, but the ferries are just not there because the governments refuse from giving them licenses and doing all that has to be done for them to freely transport people between the islands. So that is another issue. And as usual, if we need a solution, the solution usually starts at the bottom. We have to agitate for it. Because for those who want the status quo, for all the reasons you mentioned, putting these things in place, not a priority. What is a priority is programs like the Citizenship by Investment program that brings in a lot of money that a lot of people do not see, but a few people do see. The Citizenship by Investment program is one of the most interesting programs because it started right here in the Caribbean by a little island with about 40 to 60,000 people at the most, called St. Kitts Nevis. There was a period when they needed to bring something new to the economy, and this program was seen as a savior at the time. So it was set up and it started, and since then, how lucrative it was definitely picked up by other countries, and the Citizenship by Investment program became a worldwide phenomenon.
What year was that?
It was in the early 80s, I think somewhere between 82 and 84.
Okay.
That St. Kitts Nevis launched this program.
Because Dominica under Eugenia Charles actually had a citizenship program.
What year was that?
Well, Eugenia Charles, in her first term of office, that was in the early 1980s, right after, 1982, 81. And she launched a citizenship program that targeted the Taiwanese.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sold a hotel that her family owned to a Taiwanese citizenship by investment. That was the beginning of the problem and the beginning of the process.
Right, and it's roundabout.
We have a long history of it, and it's not been a successful history.
Ati, was that the Liu River property?
That was the Liu River property,
mm-hmm.
with Grace Tong, and it never, as you know, it never got off the ground. But $80 million was spent, and that hotel never opened, and nobody was ever held responsible, or nobody ever paid anybody anything.
Yeah, well, when you're playing with the big boys, $80 million is not a lot of money for those kinds of players. And this is where we are at such a disadvantage, because the people who have money in the world can afford to dispense with 50 or more million US dollars, and they hardly miss it. Basically, money laundering will be if you decide that you need to clean some money up, and you can afford to lose 30% of it in order to get 70% looking clean. That's just par for the course. So I think we need to accept that driving all of this, and we've seen the explosion in these applicants coming out of the demise of the former Soviet Union. I mean, the British have a lot to answer for. They welcomed these crooks from the former Soviet Union into the United Kingdom, or maybe to Britain, I don't know which it is. And they seem to be suddenly discovering that people like Roman Abramovich is no longer welcome. I don't know if they figure Chelsea Football Club isn't doing as well as it ought to, but so they didn't renew his visa, and he has had to relocate to Israel. But it hasn't stopped the properties, the market in central London being owned by, there is a fog over the real owners of these properties, and you have to trace it back to right here in the Caribbean, whether it is the Cayman Islands, whether it is the British Virgin Islands, And we are playing catch up right now. So I am not going to lay any blame when you tell me about strange things happening in Roseau or in St. John or in St. George's or anywhere else. Clean up your act in London first before you come telling me about money laundering.
But
let's go.
I have a different view. And my view is, why not clean up the entire process? Because what happens is, when you have corrupt people on both sides of the transaction, the problem multiplies. Because you have corrupt people dealing with corrupt people and giving them the means to sort of, to steal money away from the people who really need those resources. So I really believe, I agree that the origin of the problem is not here. But we have actually had some house slaves in our islands who are in government, who have become better at the art of corruption and money laundering than the originals. And they are hurting us more because we are small, tiny little communities. And so $80 million, you're right, means nothing to Abramovich. But it's 1/6 of the Dominican budget at the time, the annual budget. So that's the thing I would recommend strongly that we focus on, not to play the blame game. We know where the blame is, where the blame lies. We know where the problem comes from. But when you do this, remember, 4 fingers are pointing back at you. And we are ignoring those 4 fingers. And we are allowing our own people to treat us, in the same callous, disrespectful, nasty way that the white people treated our ancestors and continue to treat us globally. So we have no rock to stand on because we're not dealing with the problem at home. We're fostering it and we're festering in the problem. My prime minister is a multi-millionaire. When he ran for office the first time in 2000, he didn't have a bicycle. So let's be clear that there are some phenomena occurring here that not only mimic what went on and what is going on in the major capitals of the world and the major financial arrangements of the world.
Let me ask you a question though. We are within the same economic community here in the OECS, and we have been attempting to harmonize legislation for a long time, starting with the 1994 Companies Act. Now, we also have more recent legislation. It's along the lines of integrity in public life or whatever it is, I forget. But it requires that the people in public life have to declare their assets. Is there such legislation in Dominica?
Yeah, there's legislation, Integrity in Public Office Act, there's an Integrity Commission, but you don't want to hear what has happened to it.
Actually, I would.
Well, it's been completely gutted, and all appearances of objectivity and cross-sector representation, including cross-sector representation of the Bar Association, of other professional groupings, the accountants, the associations of accountants, all that has been taken away from it, and just 3 government-appointed people now sit on the Integrity in Public Office Commission.
And that is another story. You're asking something, Margaret?
No, I was just going to say, but isn't Grenada kind of similar, where there's this conflict of interest with the Integrity Commission there, or the person that's in charge of that as well?
I'll touch on that a bit. But when you go back to the genesis of this passport selling scheme in the Caribbean, nothing happens in isolation. And I cannot say what drove St. Kitts to launch that program at the time, except that they needed some financial boost to their economy. But what has rolled out subsequently is that it became not a citizenship by investment program as it is peddled, or as it was peddled. What it turned out to be is a grand scheme of hundreds of millions of dollars coming into the region with little or no accountability. So the corruption in the UK and the rest of Europe and everything else after the Soviet Union collapsed perhaps had something to do with it. And I wouldn't be surprised based on some of the friends that we keep.
It had something to do with it.
Right. So, but look at where it has taken us. Despite the hundreds of millions that it brings into the region, we do not have the resources to put our back up against the other countries when they begin to pressure us with the blacklist and the grey list and all the legal changes that we have to make, laws that cause companies that exist here to have to close because we have to satisfy international demands that have become necessary because of the citizenship by investment program. People turning up all over the world with passports from the OECS, and not just regular passports, diplomatic passports.
Bev, let's go back to 1999 to 2001, when in fact we were selling passports, which led to us being blacklisted, I think it was by the Financial Action Task Force. And we had to stop selling passports. And we were eventually removed from the so-called blacklist. But apparently we didn't learn our lesson, because 15 years later we have allegedly resumed the sale of passports. But you say that we're selling diplomatic passports. Do you have specific instances of this with regard to Grenada?
In Dominica, I can give you several examples. We sell diplomatic passports for $1 million a shot.
And how it works?
We have sold diplomatic passports to somebody called Francesco Corello, an owner of casinos in Italy, who we made our diplomat, our ambassador to the FAO. Somebody who's never been on a farm probably in his entire life. But he was made.
I'm trying to make the connection between a casino and
FAO,
Food and Agriculture Organization.
Okay, all right. So
well, the people in the casino need to eat.
But he also ended up, Alan, on Interpol's most wanted list. We discovered his existence when the Italian police, on behalf of Interpol, went to arrest him. And then he pulled out his diplomatic passport. He said, "You can't arrest me. I'm a diplomat of Dominica." And they couldn't arrest him.
You see,
and he was wanted for money laundering and all sorts of shenanigans.
I'm thinking about the eligibility, because in Grenada, we say we have different types of passports. We say Grenada citizens are eligible to apply for a passport. And then there are diplomatic passports, which are issuable to Grenadian diplomats accredited overseas.
Yeah.
To citizens who reside in Grenada and travel abroad for diplomatic work, to the Governor General, to the Prime Minister, to the Foreign Minister, and other government ministers. But then it goes on. Having said that there are just two types, regular and diplomatic, we then go on to say that we currently have a Grenada e-passport with the CARICOM logo. And it says now that we have passport, official passport, and diplomatic passport. So we've got a third one inside there. I don't know what an official passport is. but the one that I am really has caught my attention is that the diplomatic passport is issuable to Grenadian diplomats accredited overseas. Now you can call anybody an ambassador, but unless they are accredited, then it seems to me that they ought not to hold a diplomatic passport. And it seems that there must be some of them that have slipped through the cracks.
Well, that not only slipped through the crack, they were specifically sought out and appointed by our Prime Minister in his wisdom, because he had international arrangements that required attention from people who knew how to do those things. We had a gentleman, N.G. Lapsang, a citizen of Asia, Malaysia, China, wherever. He was a multi-citizen, and he ends up with a Dominica diplomatic passport. He subsequently ends up being arrested in the United States for having made illegal donations to both the Republican and the Democratic Party in the previous election, not the Trump election. He was arrested, he was put in jail, he was found guilty, put in jail, still holding a Dominica diplomatic passport. We have the former Minister of Petroleum.
The passport has no value.
Well, it means this kind of activity totally devalues and mocks in the notion of diplomat. Alison Mandweke, the former Minister of Petroleum in Nigeria, who, when her house was raided in the capital of Nigeria, the police found $53 million in cash in her house. She was arrested. She was wanted by Interpol. She had a diplomatic passport given to her personally by the Prime Minister. We don't know who she was accredited to, what her assignment was or anything, but there it was. She had and holds a diplomatic passport. She's very ill and in London nowadays. Keeping Margaret Catherine company. and so on. And there's a long list. The opposition leader in the parliament, several parliaments ago, asked for a full disclosure on who are our diplomats. The foreign minister, an attorney herself, says it is not in the public interest to disclose the full list of diplomats.
And the Bar Association
has
somebody like that, an attorney who will make such a statement?
And actually, just before that, she was president of the Bar Association, actually. No, and they limbo dance under the bar. The bar just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, and all these wonderfully trained attorneys, just turn a blind eye and carry on making their money.
Follow the money.
No, they said nothing, and they did less.
As of March this year, Grenadian citizens had visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to 143 countries and territories, ranking the Grenadian passport 32nd in terms of travel freedom, tied with the Paraguayan passport. Now, if we are only 32nd in desirability, it suggests that the people who are coming to us have perhaps not bothered or not been able to succeed in applications to the top 31.
That's right.
And then it's that suggests that is the reason why some of our jurisdictions have great difficulty in making public the names of the individuals whom have applied for passports in the first instance, and again those to whom passports have been issued. I mean, frankly, I would love to know who my Grenadian brethren are.
I would love to know.
I have asked the Citizenship by Investment Unit in Grenada for a list of the ambassadors who are appointed through this program. I am yet to get the list, but I am still hopeful that I will get it, because since the 90s, as Alan had mentioned earlier, we have had some people appointed diplomats who have also fallen into some dark areas where the law is concerned overseas. And we do not know if these people still have these diplomatic passports. We don't know if the passports have been revoked. We don't know this.
But we know of at least one diplomatic passport which was not renewed.
That did not come via the CBI, was it?
No, but it gives you an indication as to the reasons why diplomatic passports were issued.
But there are two other reasons why this is a problem, a serious problem for us. One of them is the number of passports that are now in the hands of persons who have never ever been to our islands, but who now carry COM passports offered to them by our various islands. In the case of St. Kitts, it was well over 30,000. In the case of Dominica, it is well past that. So if you do the addition, have we not already placed ourselves in a situation where, in addition to the overseas resident islanders, our diaspora, we now have another rapidly growing segment of our citizenry who has no allegiance to, no knowledge of, no real interest in, but with a passport nonetheless, given certain rights under our respective constitutions, including the rights to participate in voting and elections and holding public office and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What are the implications of that? And secondly, we are doing this in Dominica for the last 4 months of last year, 2018. For the last 4 months, we brought in, by declaration by our finance minister, 1.4 billion EC dollars from sales of passports.
Well, that's more than the recurrent revenue in Grenada.
Much more.
Dominica should have built an international airport by now.
But here you go, my friend. the missing link is, and this is, I think, the flaw in our Caribbean development project still. None of us can say we really have a multi-year development plan, far less a regional development plan. So we talk and talk and talk about this and that, and what we need is more money, and what we need is more investors. Really? How about what you need is a plan?
Well, actually, we have a lot of plans. We have a lot of plans here. George, didn't you cover the Blue Development Plan or something like that? And just recently I saw something by our favorite minister there, the simple fellow, where he said that they got the plan and they're just waiting, for funding. No, simple.
Did I hear?
Simon says.
But I thought I heard Bev.
That one.
Yeah, okay. That one. No, they got the plans, but they're just waiting on funding.
So
but we have a national transformation fund.
Grenada has a transformation fund, which we are told that's where the money from the CBI goes. But we do not know how much is in that transformation fund.
That's
right. And what exactly is that fund supposed to transform?
Us.
The economy. We have a list.
Investment and development.
We have a list of CBI approved projects for Grenada. And when you drive around the country, you can see where something is happening and where nothing is happening. I think there must be about 20-something projects or more on that list. And you don't see much happening except for 3. Well, we definitely see that the Silver Sands, which is one of the approved projects, has been opened. There is work going on at the Kawana Bay that is being developed by someone who has been appointed ambassador. I don't know ambassador to where, but he has the title of ambassador. But work is going on there. But the other projects that are listed as CBI projects, the Livera Beach project, that one is a real disaster. They acquired people's lands. People have died and not been paid for their lands up in St. Patrick.
Yes, but when you say it's a disaster, Isn't that relative? Because I believe that I saw a release that after 2 years they are at least 5% complete.
5%. Well, that is a disaster because ground was broken for that project it has to be more than 10 years ago.
Yeah, but that was the first developer. I think we're into the third one.
Yes, I was about to say we're into the third groundbreaking for that same project. And
With,
up to
with,
now,
with the same politicians turning the sod each time.
And not even one thatch roof hut. Not up there up to now.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. The first developer, at the time when the project was supposed to have been a golf course coming down the Piton, which seemed to have been a bad idea. But you remember they built the clubhouse, and the clubhouse is still there.
Oh yes, you are perfectly right about that.
Yeah, so I've been to many a fine fete there.
Beverley. Beverley, I think we're going to have to take a little break now. And before I go into this break, I just want to say this. I think those of you on the panel are already aware that once we got into the segment about the diplomatic passports, all hell broke loose with the internet. I mean, all you need to do is take a quick look at the comments out there on social media, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Of course, this comes as absolutely no surprise to you folks. On numerous occasions, you've seen this happen, whenever we start discussing stuff which some may consider dicey. Suddenly, the internet starts breaking up. I mean, it's just embarrassing right now to take a look and see what's going on out here. You should see the comments out there. But at least what the comments say to me is that the people are aware of what is happening. This is not happening in isolation. And they're not idiots. They know what's happening. So, having said that, all we could do is apologize for the fact that you're not having the quality of stream we had when we began the program tonight. That's all we can do, apologize. Also want to remind you that the program is going to be up not only on Facebook, it's also going to be on YouTube and on Grenada Broadcast. So, people may watch it at their leisure and enjoy and find out the truth, which efforts have been made to deprive you of. Okay? Let's take a little break. Come back in a minute.
My name is Jennifer James, and I've been making confectionaries for the past 7 years. Growing up as a little girl,
It literally started as soon as you guys got into CBI. Boom, the buffering started. So I've been like sitting here responding to people on Facebook and saying,
it eliminates fat from.
And then my poor mother dings me and she said,
I
don't know, I'm having problem hearing you guys. So I had to say to her, yeah, ma.
I would add a little
go back and listen to it tomorrow.
Some spices.
I remember as a child, the way the internet behaved, just breaking up. Reminds me as a child, Margaret, you remember $60 man?
Yes.
I can still remember the intro. Good Lord, Chief, I can't hold it, Chief. It's breaking up, Chief. That's our internet.
Yeah.
I have
it was fine, and then all of a sudden,
I started producing tamarind to sell.
Talk about press freedom.
I thought I could advance somewhere. So I went to food fair and I asked one of the salespersons there if they would.
But there's an email I just see pop here from Astaphan saying, some Astaphan person there, check your email.
To bring 20 packs.
Yeah, he said he had promised to come on.
Yeah, so I think he responded to the group. What happened is I will see, I get an alert.
My name is
so I can barely see it when I saw it when it came down. The alert popped on my screen.
With tamarind balls.
He said he didn't get the link, but I'm sure he got it. I'm gonna forward it to him again.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
Yes, it was sent and I just forwarded it. So you can look for it in your Yahoo. You can look for it in your Yahoo. Once you have a microphone and a computer.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
All right.
Together with you, we
love for you to
energize
join us
our
right
economy. We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
All right.
It's you who energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Okay.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Spice Island.
GRENLEC, energizing our Grenada.
Are we back on?
Are you equipped to take a closer look behind the numbers? The Caribbean Institute of Forensic Accounting can help you build your professional skills to audit and investigate fraud, waste,
Allan's
and
headphone is
abuse.
on.
Through the Forensic Certified Public
Yes, we're coming
Accountants
back now.
FCPA program, you gain qualification to conduct forensic audits and investigations.
Are we on air?
globally. Earn international recognition and designation as a Forensic Certified Public Accountant from the Forensic CPA Society of the USA. Certificate courses run May to November 2019 in Grenada at the Grenada National Stadium. To register, contact us at info@cfa-edu.com or 868-224-3478.
Alrighty, folks, we are back, and we're going to continue along the same lines we were just before the break, regardless of interruptions, throttling, or whatever you care to call it. We do believe in freedom of expression. Take it away, Bev.
Yes, we are discussing what happens in our country. And if there are people who believe it should not be broadcast, maybe they should come on air. Just give us a ding. Send us your email address. We'll send you the link. And you can come right here in this chat room and tell the whole world why you think this group of suspects, and none of us here are citizens by investment, why you think we should not be discussing this issue. We're going to discuss it anyway.
But somebody actually said that?
No.
No.
I am putting it on the table, actually.
Yeah.
I'm putting it on the table.
Okay.
Because of things that happen in the
Yeah, you know,
every time we start to discuss this issue.
You know, Artie, if this only happened tonight, you say, hey, maybe a little accident or whatever. But this is not an isolated case. The people who have been monitoring Grenada Broadcast, and there's several programs we do on this channel. Sundays with George Grant. Every day we do the Good Day Grenada. On Thursday nights we do this program. And people have seen this happen over and over and over again. You can discuss anything. The signal is fine. The stream is fine. However, just you start stepping on corns.
Yeah.
It happens.
I just got a little note here that Richard Branson owner of Virgin, I guess everybody knows Richard Branson, except living under a rock, that he wants to enter into talks about LIAT.
Oh, not a bad idea. He very well may bring it to where it needs to be.
Let's see what happens with that. But we come back to I wonder if anybody want to sell him a passport, boy.
You don't need that.
He has residence. You remember, he has his island in the
Exactly.
Virgins.
And I understand that he's cancelling some of his train services here. I understand this.
What's
he's going to cancel some of his train services. Does
train, you said?
I don't understand what's going on now.
And I just threw this out. I threw this out if somebody wants to sell him a passport, because we don't seem to attract the type of business people who do serious business under our CPI, you know?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I have been seeing some very obviously wealthy individuals who are staying at the Silver Sands property. They're coming from all over the world. Angola, South Africa, Russia. These are high net worth individuals.
And we're talking about acquisition of wealth here, you know? There is business and there is business. And some people do business and some do business.
Well, this is what we celebrate. Oh, you know what? You know what we forgot about with regard to the air travel, because we mentioned why doesn't the private sector step up somewhere or other? You remember there was a private sector group from Barbados with an entity called CaribJet.
Yeah.
But CaribJet allegedly didn't go very far because they couldn't get landing rights to all of the territories.
Exactly. And those are the problems. Dwyer Astaphan is going to be joining us. We welcome Dwyer. Dwyer is an attorney. I think that's his son.
Another one?
Hold on. He's coming.
All right, he's going to be with us shortly.
Stand by.
No, I was going to say, when I heard an Astaphan who is an attorney, I immediately got a little worried. Because
no, not Tony. Not Tony.
Has been talking a lot about Dominica.
Not Tony.
Not the stupid one.
Tony would not come on a program like this.
I was about to say Tony would not come on a program with Atherton Martin. Forget that.
No, that would be good.
I would love to have him on a program with Athy, but he wouldn't come. He wouldn't. He'll call the stations tomorrow and give Athy a proper cussing, but he'll not come on the program with Athy.
And he's been invited many times, you know. And,
Oh yes. And here is Dwyer. Welcome, Dwyer. We were just looking at. You're late, but we won't tell you the charges yet. We were just looking at citizenship by investment, and we were at the point where we're talking about some of the businesses that have not materialized despite millions of dollars that have passed or supposedly passed through hands for those businesses. You know, we have an area in Grenada, Allan, where there was a proposed chicken farm. Not one chicken was ever raised there.
Yeah, but give them credit. The chicken farm having failed, they then attempted to put a shrimp farm.
Exactly. And up to now, not one shrimp.
Well. But that one, I'm looking forward to the newspapers tomorrow to see whether or not there will be any updates. Because you recall a month or so ago, the Minister of Finance, as usual, has announced another investigation because he wants to know what happened to the money. So we will see now what is actually happening, because perhaps the people who expected that the money would be put into some sort of productive enterprise may or may not have claims against certain regulators, attorneys, ministers, whatever else. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm looking forward to that newspaper.
Look, I am amused and literally laughing that on the heels of the Minister of Finance announcing that he's going to launch an investigation into the shrimp farm where there is no shrimp, these letters surface in the public domain of some people making claims of some fantastic amounts of money.
It's
over
only
$6 million in one.
only 2.45 million US.
Over 6 million, 6.4 million US in one case. Nearly 500,000 US in another case. Almost 150,000 US in another case. 3 claims against this shrimp farm for money owed to them. I find it hilarious. You see, so like you, Alan, are getting me popcorn, are getting me carrot juice, I'm waiting for the show.
Are they selling chickens or eggs?
Well, it's a chicken or egg situation. We don't know, but they give up on that, so we gone to shrimp.
No, we gone to shrimp now.
Okay.
You know, yeah. And that was one of the CBI approved projects. Again, we are not sure, I am not sure if any of these principals was named ambassador or given diplomatic status for Grenada.
But more importantly, Bev, you recall...
Guys, just hold on a sec. We've been joined by Mr. Astaphan, and, you know, I think it would be really nice if we could hear his opinions on the sale of diplomatic passports. Dwyer, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Pretty good, and welcome. Just sit back a little bit so that we can look at that beautiful face without, you know, right.
This is not a comedy show.
It is a comedy show.
No, it's not a comedy show.
Hey, but listen, Dwyer, in Anguilla up there, I imagine that you're very familiar because you have a neighbor, Antigua. Very familiar with the sale of diplomatic passports. Let me have your thoughts on it. What's the status of that program up there right now? And what do you think of the idea, the concept, period?
Well, it's not legal to sell diplomatic passports. That is as simple as that. Diplomatic passports are not for sale or should not be for sale. It's as simple as that.
Okay, and granted, you know, right here in Grenada, we have a denial that any diplomatic passports have been sold, while there are people who believe that they certainly have in other islands in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Do you have any evidence that they have been?
No. That they have not been sold?
That they have been.
No, there have been suggestions, a number of suggestions that diplomatic passports have in fact been sold here. But I am telling you that the law does not allow for diplomatic passports to be sold.
Is there any way, sir, to determine whether or not, you know, despite the denials, that they have been?
Is there any way to find that out?
Yeah.
I'm sure there is. I don't know if the resources or the will exists in these islands. Let me tell you something. It may sound cynical, but I still have to say it. We seem to suffer from a syndrome in the region where when you are in opposition, you have a conscience. And when you get into office, you have a bank account to take care of.
You have to pay for the campaign.
So right and wrong depends on which side of the aisle you're sitting on.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think those who are elected to either side of the aisle ought to be the ones or can or will ever be the ones to change this particular dynamic. It's going to have to be changed by the people. But if the process of, and pardon me for saying so, or pardon me not for saying so, the process of distracting and deceiving and dividing the people and decimating them in their intellectual outputs is not going to be changed by those who are benefiting from that.
Absolutely.
And the question is, if and when are the people of the Caribbean going to throw away their gang colors, by which I mean your political party colors, disseminate the most dangerous gangs in the region, which are the political gangs called political parties, and come up with a true and clean type of politics, which is based on the robust and respectful distillation of ideas, on transparency, on the absence of corruption, on good governance, and on efficiency. That will not happen if the people continue to allow themselves to be taken advantage of. So all of the bubble and everything we want to call in nice terms will continue or perhaps get worse if we don't do something about it as the people.
Dwyer, thank you so much. Now, let me say this to you. You're not the first person I've heard utter those words. It's up to the people. It's in their hands. The ball is in their court. How, sir, please, tell me, how do you mobilize them? Because we've been talking for years, ad infinitum. How do we mobilize the people into having a change of heart and adopting a different mindset?
It's a process, and it's not going to happen overnight. The fact that we are having this conversation suggests that those of us in this conversation, and I dare say a number of those folks who are listening to us, are interested in changing to that new approach. It's going to take time. We have a political system that is not geared to enlightening people, is not geared to bringing people together for the distillation of ideas. We have an education system which is not geared to people becoming knowledgeable. It is geared to people becoming parrots, to regurgitate information. So the social, the political, the economic structuring of our societies does not lend itself to the change. So what we are doing here is going to stimulate some minds, hopefully, and they in turn will stimulate some other minds. And perhaps not in my time, but in time to come, we'll reach that point where we can truly say that the body politic, a critical mass of the body politic in the Caribbean, is independent-minded and enlightened and not vulnerable to the piercing of subversive cultural things from outside that tend to contaminate and decimate us. And that is when the system and the approach will change. I know it may sound simplistic, even dreamy, but I don't think it is. But it will take time to do. It's going to take dialogue, and we have to let people know that getting a $500 in your pocket, or a ham and a turkey, or a little house from a politician is a disgrace compared to what we're supposed to be getting, not just from them, but getting for ourselves. You know, we're being taken advantage of, and we are the biggest culprits in that process.
Yes. Can I comment? You mentioned $500 and it resonated with me, because $500 is the price of the VIP ticket for a show next weekend at our stadium. There are 600 VIP tickets available. 600 VIP tickets, and they have all been sold at $500 a pop. To go and see, you talk about external contamination of our culture. No, we're doing it to ourselves. They're going to see an artist who is advertising his show as a long walk to freedom. I had some friends here from South Africa. I showed them the billboard. They are appalled. Long walk to freedom, a convicted drug trafficker who spent 9 years in jail in the United States, and now he's out. He cannot perform in the United States, and he come in here, and 600 VIP tickets sell at $500 a pop. I think that is a disgrace So that is what you have to deal with. Beverley Asari is your former countryman.
No, listen, Allan. I have no beef with you on what you think about that, you know. But I can tell you, he's billed to perform in the US. So I want to see if that show is going to happen.
Well, somebody is going to sell the tickets and then he won't be able to turn up.
Allan.
Yes, sir.
Allan. What you said, VIP?
Yeah.
What does the I stand for?
Ignorant?
Sorry?
Ignorant.
Oh, that's what it stands for.
Had to be.
What I find, we have a lot of shows in St. Kitts too. And half of the space for these shows is taken up by what we call VIP or VVIP. And people love the idea to be in a group called VIPs and paying money that they don't have to see the same show that you and I are going to see. You see, it is this mentality that is destroying us.
Yep.
This VIP, this exclusivity, all of this is nonsense. It is a distraction from the main thing in our lives. We don't even know what the main thing in our lives is. We are a lost people, you know. I'm sad to say, we are a lost people. And only we will find ourselves, eh? Washington and London and The Hague and Beijing will not find us.
So I'm glad you have established that we are a lost people. We are seeking guidance and salvation. You realize it is precisely because of this that we have this proliferation of fundamentalist Christians all over the place, taking people away from traditional religious entities. Everybody's a wayside preacher, and the same politicians are giving them marriage, what do you call them? Marriage officers, giving them duty-free concessions. You fellas opening church with them and their family alone.
Business is good. Business is good. Business is good.
Oh gosh, look here.
Are they paying taxes?
No, it's all tax-free. That's the whole point.
No, listen. We have a Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs in Grenada. So the churches are part of the government.
Actually, hold on a second. You have to give the logical sequence of it. We had a Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs, but then the minister couldn't say ecclesiastical, so they changed it to religious. And that is no joke. All you laughing? Seem to cry, all you laughing?
Oh. Very serious, but you have to laugh.
Okay.
They would have changed it.
Oh no, don't give me this would have thing, please. Don't start me on that one.
They would have changed it.
Yeah, they would have changed it.
Oh gosh. Anyway, we were looking at the impact of these sale of passports on our region and our economy, and we have to wrap up on this topic. We can conclude that for the most part, it has left us with a black eye on the international stage. Our passports have become suspect, and don't forget that the selling of passports is the reason OECS nationals now have to get a visa to go to Canada. And other restrictions, other travel restrictions that have been put on people of the OECS region, stop and search when they get to certain ports in Europe, on aggravated and other types of searches that don't happen to other people. You know, all of these things have come upon the people of the region, and these same politicians who caused this to happen will stand up and say, oh, we are discussing with Canada the removal of visa restriction for travel. And they know it's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen in a hurry. But I don't blame the fact that we have the passport, let me call it industry, in and of itself. I blame the management or mismanagement of the industry. Okay? I blame the management or mismanagement of it. When people land at Lester Pearson Airport in Toronto with a St. Kitts and Nevis diplomatic passport and claim that they got it for $1 million and they are in Canada to meet the Prime Minister. this is what brings us into disrepute. Not the fact that the industry exists. It is how it has been messed up by vaulting ambition and personal ambition, and I'm using very generous and vague terms, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Mismanagement of the worst sort. And the countries get the black eye, the people get the black eye. But you know something, Beverly? It's not any different from anything else, you know. It's not any different from anything else. We had an announcement here today, well, it came from a media report outside of the country, that two gentlemen who happen to be economic citizens, one of them seems to be an heir to the Coca-Cola fortune, and another one, the son of the founder of Dish Network, who have indicated that they must have bought 300 acres of land to do medical marijuana research and development and production. Now, if these countries are going to go into marijuana and hemp, are we going to do the 21st century version of the colonial paradigm with bananas and sugar? Or are we going to do something different? And if we're not going to do something different, then none of these people who occupy public office deserve to go anywhere near there, because they're part of the problem. They can't shepherd us into the future. And so the problem is not the industry itself, but the guidance or misguidance that we are getting.
Dwyer, I would only partially agree, because we've had this conversation before. I think the problem is that we leapfrogged over the other industries that required our attention and required top flight management. The industry of agriculture and food production, the industry of health, the industry of education, the industry of culture and art. I mean, we have not invested in those industries. And so we ended up in a situation where the business of selling passports and the business of citizenship and so selling citizenship became attractive, even more attractive, because it seemed easy to do.
I agree with you.
You know, so I'm concerned that, you know, like you, as long as we keep the same management group with the same authority and the same laissez-faireism that we display towards them, we will continue to have this problem. This is why one of the first things I would say we have to do, we have to name those people, because we are in one region. We actually carry the same passport. It's a CARICOM passport. So if somebody's in St. Kitts messing up that industry, and that same person is not known to us in Dominica, or you in Grenada, or St. Lucia, then we are at risk. So we must have some kind of central clearing house for the people, where people can go online and see who those rascals are, see what they did in St. Kitts. So when they come here and pretend to be holier than the Pope, we will know who they are, and we will be able to move again. That's a simple thing. It is something, there's no database that we can go to and get that basic information. That would be an interesting thing to have.
I have no argument with that, Afi. No argument at all.
Right. And right now, well, I think we could take our final break now. And then when we come back, we will look at another issue we had on our menu for this evening. Take it away, George.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 447
640-2434.
Tell everybody.
My name is Jennifer James, and I've been making confectionaries for the past 7 years. Growing up as a little girl, I always wanted to make these little things. Fudge, sugar cake, tamarind ball, these little things. I read something actually, and it said that tamarind itself is very good because it eliminates fat from the liver. You get the mature tamarind and you crack it, you shell it out. I would add a little baking soda, some spices. I would leave it to rest probably for about 2 hours and then add my sugar and just start kneading. I usually knead it hard enough so that I can roll it. When I finish roll it, I will paste it with the actual white or brown sugar and you have a nice tamarind ball. I have been providing food fair with tamarind ball about 6 years now. I started producing tamarind ball to sell for the school children. I thought I could advance somewhere. So I went to food fair and I asked one of the sales persons there if they would be interested in selling my tamarind ball. And she told me yes. She told me to bring 20 packets to start with. It was really a joy for me because I wanted to extend on my little business. My name is Jennifer James and I work with the food fair to provide you with tamarind balls.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate, Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Boy, yo, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, it can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADAB. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADAB, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, we are back with our final segment here on tonight's edition of Mek We Chat. And see, we have a newcomer here, Mr. Astaphan. Pleasure meeting you, sir. And I'm sure he's going to have something to say before time's up. Bev, Wago. Bev, wait a minute, Bev. Wait a minute. There's a young man by the name of, what's his name? Jerry somebody or Jerry George?
Young.
You know the guy I'm talking about? Jerry something. Jerry George, I think it is.
I don't know any young man by the name of Jerry George. Any of you know any young man named Jerry George?
All right.
Yes, I do.
All right.
Already.
I don't.
All right. Okay, Bev. Okay, I'm sorry I called him young. There's a hard old man by the name of Jerry George who usually joins us on a Thursday night. Where the heck is he tonight?
He sent note that he's traveling, and he was hopeful that he would get to his destination in time to join us. But they had some hold up at the airport because of some medical situation on board. So they had to wait on the medics to arrive before they could disembark.
Okay.
I think they just got released from the airport. So I don't know if he's gonna get to his destination to join us anytime before we sign off.
Okay.
But we did say that if he gets the measles, he can stay wherever he is. Don't come back.
Yeah, George.
Yeah.
Facebook fans.
Pardon me?
Your fans on Facebook say you are ignoring them, George. So we want to entertain a few comments this time before we go into our final piece.
All right. Yeah, where do we begin? The thing is, pardon me?
So we probably should start from the bottom since there are so many comments.
Yeah, there's a comment there from Angus.
Angus says, I'm trying to understand, as a first time here, are the participants entertaining any questions we raise, or is the moderator reading our comments? Or anything? Or are we basically just speaking to ourselves as we listen? Well, Mr. Steele, anybody who has watched this program over the last couple of years will tell you that, yes, we do routinely read comments. Sometimes our topics are so captivating, there's very little time to read comments, and I think tonight happens to have been one of those nights when there's just been so much going on that we really haven't had time to read as many comments as we would like to. As we move up, I see there he is again. He says, I want to ask about what I said and how does it work with that guy getting one of ours, but with really sole interest in Vincy Ganja. Does anybody have a clue what he's speaking about?
Yeah, because there's a comment. He had a comment before that, and so that was a follow-up to that initial comment.
What was that comment? Do you remember?
Sure. So what he had said was, prior to that one, was only recently by coincidence I learned of a gent from Sierra Leone with a Grenadian citizenship seeking a ganja license in St. Vincent. Don't know what he did via CBI for his Grenadian citizenship, but obviously our country is not his target.
Okay. Anybody want to comment on that?
I haven't heard of this situation, so there's not much I can say on it, except that this is the freedom of movement which the passport allows in the region, in many countries. Over 130, Allan said, in the world. 143.
Yeah.
But St. Vincent is way ahead of us because they have actually brought draft legislation to regulate the cultivation and the sale of marijuana. I don't know that there was any overriding intent to look into research for the medicinal aspect of it. I think they were more concentrating on the recreational part, because as you know, it's the recreational aspect that you can tax, and certain, I think it's over more than 10 states in the US are doing very well with the tax revenues from the sale of recreational marijuana. Now the issue there, however, is that you have a relatively affluent society and they are able to pay for their recreation. Whereas here, traditionally, the people who are currently users of this homegrown product are not susceptible to regulation or taxation or to pay more than they consider to be appropriate. So in an examination we did, actually Bev, you were involved in that, when we looked at the legislation on ganja in another program, and we looked at it from the point of view that if you are going to legislate it, regulate it, and tax it, you are going to have a major problem with the people who currently enjoying a totally unregulated underground economy. And they're going to fight you for what they currently have and what they have been enjoying. So Mr. Sierra Leone, or wherever he come from with the Grenada passport, good luck to him.
Yes, we will see how he gets into that market.
But this is another issue for me. I mean, I just want to flag it maybe for future discussion. Are we going to miss the boat again on this, cannabis opportunity? Are we going to miss the lessons we learned from sugar, from bananas, from coffee, which is that we can achieve critical volume, critical mass, critical trade and presence only if we do certain things together, if we consolidate production, research, extension, marketing, and so forth. And are we going to end up competing against each other because everybody wants to move first with the law, first with it? What about the harmonization of an approach towards this thing, which is in all our islands, so that it gets done differently? But to go to Dwyer's point, that's not going to happen as long as you have those same idiots.
That's right.
In charge of the policy making and guidance and management of these societies. But that guidance needs to come forward, because here's another golden opportunity being presented to us to sort of make a mark globally in a way that generates fantastic amounts of income, diversifies the economy, employs our people, etc., etc., etc. Are we going to miss it?
And I think Jamaica has leaped ahead of St. Vincent.
Just to come back here, Angus says the question was not about ganja itself or the license, but he obtaining a Grenada passport to head there.
Yeah, fair
What
enough.
if he scams? What if he scams there and takes our passport and goes to St. Kitts? What is the overriding agency to say he's bad, period, for St. Kitts to say no? There's none.
And what about the passports that were issued for the people who are promoting the shrimp farm?
Exactly. We don't know if we do not know. A lot of people who have fallen into disrepute or people of ill repute who have passports. We don't know if those passports have been revoked.
But on the issue of passports or lack of passports, I think you did say that you wanted to look at human trafficking, because I remember some years ago there was a report that some fishermen in Marigot in Dominica had some people who they were supposedly transporting to Guadeloupe, and they didn't actually deliver, and that there was some loss of life.
Yeah, there is a very active, movement of Haitian persons who come here not to stay, but come here with a view to actually moving on to either Guadeloupe, Martinique, or the U.S. or British Virgin Islands, and then to move on beyond those points. It is estimated that over 30,000 Haitians have arrived here over the last 12 months. We don't know how many have stayed. We don't know, but the French authorities are now registering alarm at the daily arrival from Dominica in Guadeloupe and Martinique of substantial numbers of trafficked Haitians. Haitians who pay between $1,000 and $3,000 for an open boat trip from Dominica to one of these islands. So, it's a, and the people who are involved, we know who they are. They are members of the ruling party.
So are
They
you
are members and operators and operatives of the ruling party.
Are you seeing
again because they have control and authority? There's
are
no
you seeing
immigration
transformation taking place in the villages?
There's no customs protocol. There's no port protocols involved. It's just a totally lawless, a totally open-ended kind of operation on the way in and on the way out. The same people who welcome and meet and transport and accommodate and house the Haitian persons are the same persons who are exporting them.
And are you seeing evidence that the money is being invested in Dominica? I mean, you're seeing properties, you're seeing motor cars, Or is the money just being banked abroad or what?
It's too much money to put in the banks. There are 3 banks that have refused to accept any money from anything looking fishy. Royal Bank, what used to be Barclays, which is now First Caribbean, and Scotiabank. So the only bank that will accept money, funny money, or as we call it here, jumbie money, is the National Bank.
My God.
Because under international financial scrutiny, the correspondent banking situations of these 3 foreign-owned banks is not available for that kind of operation. So even people who are legitimate and legal agents of the passport, the Citizens by Investment Scheme, now can no longer put their earnings in those foreign banks. These banks will not accept or hold that money.
And this is something
because
our
it's too much.
policymakers...
1.4 billion in 4 months. Multiply that by 4.
Yeah, this is something our policymakers, I think, have not fully addressed, you know, because the loss of correspondent banking relationships will make it impossible for us to engage in just the normal trade of imports and exports. We are dependent on imports to maintain our living standards in these little islands. And if we don't have access to correspondent banking relationships, I mean, what will happen? We're not going to be able to just take briefcases of cash up to America to buy food and come back down. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
It's a very serious thing, and it goes back to Dwyer's earlier point about the complete and total mismanagement of a scheme. Nobody seemed to have calculated, projected, planned, and made arrangements for the implications of substantial income coming into a tiny economy where sugar had collapsed, as it was in St. Kitts, bananas collapsed, as it did in Dominica, where we just lost 30% of our GDP when Ross University was allowed to leave Dominica and go and set up shop in Barbados. I mean, you know, so there's nothing. And so, you know, it makes the sale of the product, a passport, very, very lucrative, very attractive. It forces the price down. We are now competing with each other to the basement.
And it comes back to what Angus alluded to a while ago and what you just said, Athi. There is no harmonization of anything. No harmonization of the passport business. There is none for the ganja business. There is none for any business which comes up in the region.
Look at something as blatant as disasters. We just had Hurricane Maria. We had Irene. Look at the massive amounts of damage that was done by these storms a year and a bit ago. Do you sense that these islands have assembled our meager or whatever resources and personnel and have now at the ready for another hurricane season, which is just 2 months away? Do you sense that we are applying any lessons that we've learned from Maria?
You see, we are quickly running out of time.
We expect the international community to come to our rescue.
Yeah, we're quickly running out of time, but I want to flag some things here before we go. Number one, I am totally with Dwyer when he says we have to continue doing what we are doing in order to propagate change. The usual suspects here know that one of my passion is to see the dismantling of political parties. That is not something which is going to happen overnight, but I know and I foresee that a better system of governance can be put in place without political parties. We don't need them. They are the bane of the corruption in our societies. So I want to say that, yes, let us spread the message to as many people as we possibly can, because there are other people out there who do care. And we here do not have all the answers. The people out there who care don't have all the answers, but guess what? We have the same vision. And as long as we can see a better way for our countries and we continue to work towards it, it's gonna happen. Slavery was not abolished overnight. It took hundreds of years. You know,
and B, perhaps you should create an avenue for Dwyer to help bring this to fruition. You know, listening to the gentleman, I'm only meeting him for the first time tonight, but listening to the gentleman seems like he has a hell of a lot to offer. And I don't like to use the word exploit, but perhaps this man needs to be exploited. We need to hear a lot more from him. So why don't you extend an invitation to him to come on back?
Dwyer?
Yes,
I am extending an invitation to you to join us Thursday evenings, as many Thursday evenings as you are available, so we can, well, George don't like the word exploit, so we can share in your expertise.
Yeah.
And I'm also extending an invitation to Allan Bierzynski as well to join us on Thursday evenings. And Allan, you don't have to go down to the studio. You can stay in your home, you see, and join like the rest of us stay in our homes.
At my age, I go to sleep real early, you know. George asked me to come as a special
sleep early.
Remember,
And wake
look,
up.
I was on George radio this morning at 9 a.m., you know. I can't get up early in the morning and stay up in the night too.
Come on, that's what retirement is about.
Listen, after you finish with George at 9 o'clock, you do like Uncle Gary, you go and take an afternoon nap and you come back for the evening.
Actually, you know, I understand that practice of Uncle has been followed by another fella.
So I hear. So I hear. So the work that we are doing, we should know that it will bring the results, but it may not be that we are going to see the results. But it's going to happen, and it will happen. Because one thing for sure, this kind of corruption and lack of proper management, it can't continue.
And you know, Beverley, and gentlemen, and ladies and gentlemen who are listening, one of the reasons that we are not together as a region and we are not coordinating and collaborating the way we ought to is because of corruption. People want to be big fish in small ponds and gather up as much as they can gather up as quickly as possible. Yep. And we are mere stepping stones for their vaulting personal ambition. And this is why I tell you, the change has to come from the ground. Stimulated, if you will, by activists like ourselves. But who is in the driver's seat doesn't want to remove himself or herself from it because they're very happy where they are. And if we come together, we are coming together for the common good. The common good is not in their best interest. So regionalism, if it's given a chance, is the best thing for the region. It's the worst thing for those despots who are now in power and who have this lust for power over the people.
Exactly. And I just want to squeeze this final note in from Angus. Angus says, would love to hear you folks speak about the bragging rights, like I heard here recently, about 5% growth and best in the sub-region, yet the country remains crappy and tables are turning up by the roadside selling bakes and juice to survive. Long live concrete. It seems for these politicians as they brag percentages. What is growth in the republics of our people? Hashtag no one cares. Well, as we wrap up in our final minute, let me just say that we no longer have economies at the bottom. Agriculture and other economies of that nature that used to be from the bottom of the societies, they are no longer there. People used to be in agriculture. Agriculture has died. The people are now left trying to find their way out. Growth now is measured from the top. It's what the 1% is doing, which is being reflected as this growth, not what the 99% are doing or going through. So when you hear of 5% growth, it's not a lie. It's just that the 5% is the growth of the 1%, not the growth of the 99%.
Beverly, can I squeeze something in here for 2 seconds?
Yes, please.
Quickly. You see, one of the most dangerous things about human development is this talk about growth, Economics is the study of scarce resources, right? The best use of scarce resources. The resources on the planet are limited. You cannot have growth every year, economic growth. And very often you have economic growth resulting in social detriment. The important growth is social and human development, not necessarily economic growth. That's a statistic that very often is used to fool people. And it's a statistic that people should put aside. Where is the human development? That's all that matters.
Yes, absolutely. We thank you very much for joining us, Dwyer. Usual suspects, thank you so much. Allan, thank you so much for joining us as well. Always applaud Catherine, who gets up at 1 o'clock in the morning over there in the UK to be with us. Catherine, you're a soldier. We welcome and appreciate you. Guys, have yourself a great evening. Have a wonderful weekend. Continue to do the great work we all do in our little corners when we're not together. And see you all next week. Same time, same place, God's willing, where we will look at some more serious issues. Have a good night, all.